Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the Nisga'a Nation celebrates 25 years of treaty, anticipation mounts over cabinet appointments, and tangible effects of the trade war on border crossings.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on this Monday, May 12th. I'm Jaylene Matthews. The Nisga'a First Nation recently celebrated a historic anniversary date, as it's now been a quarter of a century since a monumental milestone to gaining their independence was reached. CFTK-TV's Kale Maslin has more.
This past Sunday officially marked 25 years since the landmark Nisga'a Treaty came into effect, which was the first treaty in Canada to ever include the right to self-government in its terms, and served as a big step forward for the Nisga'a First Nation in their quest to take charge of their own destiny. And on Friday, at the end of last week, the Nisga'a government held a celebration at their main office building in Gitlac-Damix, the village that was formerly known as New Iange. Nisga'a Nation President Eva Clayton attended the event and ended up discussing the importance of the treaty, not just in the sense of what it did for her people, but how it could help others as well.
The treaty will provide them with a framework to establish what they want, so that they can, as they negotiate their way into Canada.
The event also saw the Nisga'a give a shout out to their treaty partners like the federal government and BC provincial government, while noting that their current relationship with both entities is in a good spot.
We're pleased with the relationship we've established with Canada and BC. There have been challenges, but as we move forward in carrying on with that relationship, there will no doubt be challenges, but challenges that we all have to overcome.
Many Nisga'a Nation members came out to help commemorate the day that can be pointed to as a big turning point in not only helping their nation get the ability to govern itself, but also to take steps to gain control over its own economy as well. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Kale Maslin.
A new report from the Terrace RCMP documented a few major incidents in the past week. Police found various illegal items after executing a search warrant at a home on Queensway Drive in Thornhill. Some of the items found included prohibited weapons, cash, suspected cocaine, and illicit pharmaceutical drugs, with the search also leading to 7 people being arrested in this still ongoing investigation. In another incident, someone reportedly saw a man hit another man with his vehicle and then hit that man over the head with a tire iron afterwards in the Terrace Airport parking lot. The victim was eventually taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, and the suspect was arrested while later getting aggravated assault charges approved against him and a future court date. And the Northwest Regional Airport, just outside of Terrace, recently released their passenger statistics that they accumulated during the month of April. The total number of passengers to pass through the airport in April was 20,653, which was an increase of almost 220 people from March. Going back to December of 2024, the passenger numbers for the airport have generally been increasing, as April's final number is up by almost 5,000 people compared to December of 2024. And the BC Wildfire Service says nearly a dozen fires in the province's northeast burned underground throughout the winter, and warm and dry weather are now waking them up. The service says 11 fires in the Fort Nelson area have recently begun visibly smoking, and officials are watching the overwintering fires very closely. BC Wildfire says crews are focused on hot spots that pose the greatest danger to infrastructure, and targeting those can be safely accessed. It says there are more than 30 active wildfires in BC, most of which have been human-caused. Coming up next, anticipation over cabinet appointments. Welcome back. A judicial recount is underway in a rural Newfoundland riding where the Liberals finished with a 12-vote lead. The recount in the Terra Nova, the Peninsula's riding in central Newfoundland, is one of 4 that Elections Canada ordered after last month's federal election. On Saturday, a recount in the Quebec riding of Terrebonne resulted in the Liberals winning by just 1 vote. The party now holds 170 seats in the House of Commons, 2 shy of the 172 needed for a majority government. And the highly anticipated new cabinet appointments are expected Tuesday. And so far, we can only speculate on the choices Prime Minister Mark Carney will make. Here's CTV's Jeremy Charon with more political analysis.
When Prime Minister Mark Carney returns to Rideau Hall on Tuesday, he'll name a new front bench for the second time in as many months.
I think the cabinet's going to be shaped by 2 themes, change and crisis.
That change in cabinet is likely to come via some high-profile newly elected MPs. Former Carney advisor Tim Hodgson, École Polytechnique shooting survivor Nathalie Provost, former Quebec Finance Minister Carlo Leitao, former Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson, former Saskatchewan Minister Buckley Bélanger, and former broadcaster Evan Solomon are among those to watch for.
I do think you're going to see a mix of old and new, but I think you're going to see a real emphasis on new and a utilitarian focus in terms of who has done what for me, and more importantly, who can do what for me in terms of moving the yardsticks on the priorities that I, as Prime Minister, care most about.
Now, one of the biggest questions lies with what happens to the familiar faces, whom Carney has tapped already with key portfolios linked to the trade war.
We see a very similar team between Trudeau and Carney. The Conservatives will say, look, it's just Trudeau all over again. I think, it'll be interesting to see who Carney brings in that's new.
With more MPs this time around, he'll have more options, and regional representation could come easier with seats in every province. Carney has promised gender parity, but hasn't indicated if he'll grow his cabinet.
I'm more interested in the style of governance than I am in who he puts into the cabinet. It's always fun to speculate about who will be in cabinet, but what approach will he take?
Efficient and focused is the approach Carney has promised. In his first go-around, he made dramatic cuts to the number of ministers in cabinet, but with new high-profile MPs, that number could grow this time around.
Police in Fort St. John's say they're investigating reports of a shooting early Sunday. Mounties say they responded to a report of shots fired before 2 a.m. in the 11,000 block of 92nd Street and found a vehicle with apparent bullet holes. RCMP say the shooting appears to have been targeted at a home that is known to police. And as the trade war has created so much tension between Canada and the States, one area in which the effects are tangible is at the border crossings. And one sector feeling the slide is duty-free shopping.
You don't have to spend more than a few minutes at any border crossing between the U.S. and Canada to understand things have changed. 6 months ago, these were the lines you could expect, with some lanes backed up so far, the booths themselves quite literally seem a country away. But today, the now seamless flow of traffic, while a welcome change for some, a frightening reality for others.
Yeah, and it's just not happening right now, yeah.
Michael Gruich and his family have owned this duty-free store in Niagara Falls, Ontario for almost 40 years.
We're solely reliant on our tourists.
And you're just not seeing tourists?
And not seeing it, yeah.
Outside of the COVID-19 pandemic, he tells me these last few months have been the toughest his store has ever seen.
A year ago today, what would it look like here?
Our parking lot would be filled, but right now there's 2 or 3 cars in the parking lot, and that's it. Sad to see. Yeah.
When the tariffs first started coming out and the news, we saw an immediate drop in traffic.
That's Tanya Lee, the president of Canada's Duty Free Association. She says Michael's shop isn't the only one seeing this. In fact, it's something all 32 Canadian-owned duty-free shops across the U.S.-Canada border are experiencing, with sales down as much as 80% after the latest numbers from March showed that nearly 1 million fewer travelers made the journey from Canada into the U.S. compared to last year, even leading a Canadian judge just this past month to order the Fort Erie shop into receivership, with this latest decline in business delivering the final blow.
Where people are staying in Canada and spending here, or they're bypassing the States and they're going to places like Mexico or down to the islands or going to Europe instead.
If that doesn't change soon, Michael back in the Falls worries his shop could be next and hopes, unlike the rest of us, that bumper-to-bumper traffic becomes the norm once again.
We don't want to be the 51st state, but we want to be a great partner to the Americans and our friends over there.
Turning to the weather, the moon is full tonight, and with clear skies in most of the northwest, there's a good chance you'll be able to see it. May's full moon is known in the Old Farmer's Almanac as the flower moon, named for the time of year in which flowers spring forth across North America in abundance. It's also known as the budding moon or the planting moon. The sun rose in the northwest today at 5:30 a.m. and sets at 9:30 p.m. Tonight on the north coast, expect conditions to be partly cloudy with a low of 8 degrees and some light winds gusting to 30 kilometers an hour over exposed coastal sections. Over the next few days on the north coast, expect a mix of sun and clouds, then rain beginning on Thursday. Temperatures sitting between 9 and 11 degrees, overnight lows between 6 and 8 degrees. Tonight in the Terrace-Kitimat area, expect conditions to be clear with a low of 7 degrees, becoming partly cloudy this evening. Over the next few days in the Terrace-Kitimat area, the sun will stick around until Thursday, then we'll get some rain. Temperatures will sit between 9 and 17 degrees, overnight lows between 3 and 8 degrees. Tonight in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, conditions are looking partly cloudy with a 30% chance of showers early this evening, clearing later on, and a low of 0 degrees. Over the next few days in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, conditions are looking sunny for the next 2 days at 18 and 17 degrees. Then the temperature will drop to 11 Thursday with a chance of showers, overnight lows in the 2 to 6 degree range. Let's check your northwest highways now. On Highway 16, there's bridge maintenance in several locations. There's also road sweeping and utility work to watch out for. On Highway 37, there's bridge construction as well as frost heaves. On Highway 37A, watch for road sweeping as well as falling rocks. On Telegraph Creek Road, there are some muddy sections. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, an Alberta oil company sold to the States. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says her government is freezing its industrial carbon price effective immediately at $95 per ton of emissions. She says the move is critical to keep the industry competitive and defend jobs as Canada navigates a tariff fight with the United States. The price had been set to rise to $110 per ton in 2026 and to continue increasing to $170 per ton by 2030. And job security at a Burnaby oil refinery comes into question as a deal is underway for an Alberta-based corporation that's expected to sell to an American company.
A $9.1 billion deal. American petroleum company Sunoco has plans to acquire Alberta-based Parkland Corporation, a transaction that both companies say will provide value to shareholders, leaving employees at Parkland's Burnaby refinery questioning their economic future.
This plant's been here since 1935, and
We represent 180 workers in the plant, so obviously top of mind is job security.
Unifor President Russ Day works as a millwright at the facility. If the deal goes through, he's not sure whether Sunoco will want to keep the refinery.
They used to own refineries, however, they seem to have closed them all or sold them off. So we're not certain, what that's going to bring if the change of ownership does occur.
The union says the refinery supplies about 30% of fuel for the Lower Mainland and Vancouver Island.
So it's a fairly important asset in terms of energy security for the region.
Parkland's president and CEO Bob Espy is calling the acquisition a significant milestone, saying, quote, "This transaction delivers immediate value for shareholders, including an attractive 25% premium. Sunoco shares our commitment to growth, customer service, operational excellence, and ongoing investment in Canada."
What I'll say is with a 70-cent Canadian dollar, versus the U.S., I mean, it's not surprising that we're seeing U.S. companies coming in and buying these, Canadian assets at very good valuations.
Sunoco says it will maintain a Canadian headquarters in Calgary and keep significant employment levels across the country. The union doesn't trust that.
That's very open-ended. You don't really know what that means. Press promises are very often broken.
If the sale goes through, pending a vote next month, Unifor is calling on the feds and province to provide regulatory oversight to ensure shareholders aren't the only ones benefiting in this negotiation. Isabella Zavarisi, CTV News, Burnaby.
Turning to the markets now, markets in the United States and Canada rallied on news of a 90-day truce in the U.S.-China trade war. The Canadian dollar dropped a little over 1/10 cent. The price of gold fell by $116. Oil rose $1.02. Natural gas fell by 13 cents, and aluminum was up 37.50. In Toronto, the TSX rose by 174 points. The Venture Index was down 6 points. In New York, the Dow Jones rose by just under 1,161 points, and the Nasdaq rose by 779 points. Still ahead, Pope Leo XIV's first few days elected. The new Pope's first Sunday address was focused on creating peace during a time of war. Camille Karamali reports.
Back on the balcony where he was first introduced to the world, Pope Leo XIV delivered his first noon blessing Sunday in front of 100,000 devout Catholics. The message, one of peace.
Mai più la guerra.
Calling for no more war. A ceasefire in Gaza, lasting peace in Ukraine, and an end to hostilities between India and Pakistan.
Terza guerra mondiale a pezzi.
Echoing his predecessor Pope Francis in saying what is happening now is a third world war being fought in pieces.
I expect that he's going to bring all people together. He's going to help all people.
It's not just the message that seems to be resonating with Catholics, but how it's being delivered.
Yeah, it's a little different. We haven't heard a Pope speaking English in the last 12, 13 years, because Pope Francis really didn't speak English.
Speaking Italian today, but his first Mass Friday morning in English.
You have called me to carry that cross and to be blessed with that mission.
One of the 5 languages he speaks.
That will certainly come in handy. His ability to connect and reach people really makes a difference when you can speak their language as well.
Here at St. Michael's Cathedral in Toronto, there's a feeling of closeness to the new Pope.
Him being from the U.S., it has similarities in our culture with the U.S. I feel like we'll understand his messages even clearer than we did in the past.
A clearer message from an American Pope that it's hoped could lead to a tighter bond between two quarreling neighbors.
As right now, what's going on between Canada and America, it will come to the end.
Pope Leo's inauguration Mass will take place next Sunday. It's a more formal ceremony marking his appointment and will allow countries from around the world to send delegates and offer their best wishes. The crowds for next Sunday expected to be even bigger.
Staying in the Vatican City now as Pope Leo addressed journalists for the first time this morning. Here's ABC's Patrick Revelle.
This morning, Pope Leo introducing himself to hundreds of journalists from around the world, shaking hands and giving blessings.
They say when they clap at the beginning, it doesn't matter much. If you're still awake at the end and you still want to applaud, thank you very much.
In his address, the Pope calling for people to reject the war of words and expressing solidarity with jailed journalists and saying a free and independent media must be defended. Over 100,000 people came to see his first Sunday blessing on St. Peter's Square yesterday. From the balcony, the new Pope using his address to call for peace, urging an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and calling for a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. Americans thrilled to see this first Pope from Chicago. Cardinal Blaise Cupich, Archbishop of Leo's hometown Chicago, speaking to ABC's Martha Raddatz.
My hope would be that he has now a new platform to reintroduce what the Church has always called for in terms of its social justice agenda. And it'll give people another opportunity to take a second look at what Francis was saying, but now in the words and the voice of an American who speaks like an American. I think that's going to be very powerful going forward.
In this address, Pope Leo again strongly echoing Pope Francis. He also acknowledged that we live in difficult times, but urging people not to turn away, saying, "We are the times." Patrick Regal, ABC News, Vatican City.
In the Northwest and across the globe, cold plunging has become a massive trend, touting physical and physiological benefits. But are they truly effective? Have a look.
It's time to go plunge. Let's go.
Cold plunges are hot right now.
Oh, that's cold.
From fitness influencers,
3 minutes minimum, 6 minutes maximum,
A-list celebrities.
Come on.
Many swearing by it over recent years, saying it helps muscle recovery, boost your metabolism, regulate hormone production, improve circulation, and activate your immune system. And some medical studies do support the benefits, although the research is still scant. And now, a new study suggesting that for women, taking the plunge might not cut it. After completing a rigorous workout, 30 women randomly dipped in hot or cold water. Researchers found compared to doing nothing, neither improved muscle recovery. And recently, popular self-help influencer Mel Robbins, a cold plunge enthusiast herself, having a viral moment on her podcast with women's physiology expert Dr. Stacey Sims, who says the water just doesn't have to be that cold.
It's not a severe shock to a woman's body as it is for a man.
And it's not just about the cold plunges. Experts like Dr. Sims and others argue many widely held beliefs around fitness and weight loss, intermittent fasting, working out on an empty stomach, don't take the needs of women into account.
There are two different factors driving differences in how men and women respond to different types of therapies like cold plunges. One is physiologic. Men have less body fat than women. Number two is women in general have an instinct to conserve heat at a different rate than men do. The third are hormonal changes.
One analysis reporting only about 6% of exercise and sports science studies take menstrual cycles into account when designing studies. And those hormone fluctuations can impact the results.
Some days the cold plunge feels horrible. It's like a mirror to what's going on in your life. We need to experiment with ourselves a little bit and not just take what everyone says and just do it.
It's all about what works for you.
That's our news for now. For more local news, visit us at cftktv.com. We're also on YouTube, TikTok, X, and Blue Sky. Thanks for watching and have a great evening.